Well, hello, NFT NYC community. I am looking forward to sharing this conversation with Mike. Mike is one of the most inspirational people I've ever met. And so, Mike, we should just get right into it. So, I got to have you and your other astronaut friends from Space Plus come join us at the town hall. And it was such a cool vibe, right? It just felt like all of you were on the same page. You've all become astronauts. You got selected for this program. Your energy was palatable. I think they felt your energy from all the other stages. It was electric. And there's so many cool things that came from that. And I just think that NFT NYC has benefited massively from your participation. We're really excited to have you participate again in London. But not everybody in our community knows who you are or all the fun things that you put your energy towards. So please give folks a little insight in who are you, my friend?
Hi, Ian. I'm Mike Mongo, and you are one of the more inspiring people I met. We just bumped into each other kind of at your conference, and this is like that. And your conference has become a really big part of my life, and I'm grateful to be part of NFT NYC, and I'm just excited about what's going to happen in London, knowing what I've seen at two amazing NFT NYCs. And when we got the opportunity to be on stage with you at the big hall at NFT NYC, that was an honor, because this is some of the most thoughtful group of people in the world. These are the thinkers and creators who are pretty much architects and authors of our future right now. Yeah. And to embody that as Space Plus and show that, I mean, I got goosebumps. I mean, I'm covered with goosebumps. Like to show that this is what NFTs and Web3 is about. Like, we're going to space because of NFTs. Like this is the model forward. Yeah. Going forward, this is how we're doing it, and sharing that with everybody in the room who intuitively largely have the same insight. And sometimes we just need somebody in front of us to validate that. Like, oh my gosh, I'm in the right time, right place at the right time with the right people. Like I like having that communication, and that's been my experience at NFT NYC. That's why I'm so enthusiastic about NFT London, because if it's anywhere near as good as it has been for the last two NFT NYCs, then what we are really witnessing and being part of is an unfolding future that we cannot prepare for. And that's exciting to me. Like that's my wheelhouse right there.
I love it. There are so many things about you that are unique. And so I know a lot of your passion has to do with doing good. So you have this incredible articulate way of wooing people around you to think beyond themselves and to think collaboration and to think impact for humanity. I'd love to dive into those things. But before we do, can you talk a bit about the advantages that you found in being different and being unique? Even the physical representation of you wearing your glasses upside down is an example of the commitment that you've made in being the only Mike Mongo and standing out and being not just comfortable with your uniqueness, but creating opportunities for others to enjoy it and celebrate it and recognize it. So can you talk a bit about that before we dive into being an astronaut and doing good with NFTs? Can we just talk about the good of being unique and different from others and celebrating that and pressing into it?
Yeah, of course. What I heard on my ear was the good of doing good, and getting people's attention about sharing that is important. And kind of, I think it's kind of easy and simple at this point. I think that when we are younger is when we spend the time on figuring out how to get people's attention. And then by the time we mature and get to another place in our life, we figure out why we're working to get people's attention and how it's important. For myself, it's students that have taught me everything pretty much, because when you talk about doing good, I know for a fact, and you're a dad and I'm a dad, and kids it just automatically want to do good. They automatically run to help. Yeah. It's not like, hey, will you take out the garbage? And they run and take out the garbage. It's if something shows up in front of them where someone needs help, students, kids will automatically go to help. If someone falls down, they go to, if a door needs to be opened, if a chair needs to be moved, let me do it. We all did it in school. We're like, I want to be the helper. I want to do that. And then as we get older, as we mature and we grow in our experience, we can talk ourselves out of that, and we can get caught up in our own story, our own, like for a lot of us, we've all have traumas that we've been through here on planet Earth. It's not out of the ordinary. In fact, it's I would say it's the rule that almost all of us have been through something. And then going through that, working through that, doing the work, like you and I both know this, and the importance of doing the work.
Right.
And that's being able to learning how to fix myself and help myself, repair myself, heal myself in order that I may help others. And once we learn how to do that, once we figure out how to do that, then we get to do the work of supporting others in their journeys. And it's not done. When I got selected to be an astronaut, Ian, I was over a couple of months, over like a month and a half period, a feeling started to work up inside of me that I was kind of unfamiliar with. And I was out surfing. I live here in Cape Canaveral. The beach is right there. And so when I'm in my head, I'll go out in the water, and it helps me like get rid of the noise and get clear on what is going on. And I'm in my head, I'm like, what, am I sick? Am I wrong? Am I bad? Am I, and so help me, it happened just like this. Am I, because I'm honing in on the feeling, I'm like, am I an imposter? And I immediately understood what was happening. It was just a residue of imposter syndrome that had been waiting to spring, like had got the energy enough to become a nagging thing in the back of my mind. And as soon as I identified it, I said, that's okay. I can, that's all right. Cause I've already dealt with the whole imposter syndrome in our lifetimes. As we go on, it shows up. And, it's funny because we talk about imposter syndrome, like you and I talk about it with peers, and people are like, oh yeah, imposter syndrome. And then almost every day, whenever I talk about it, there's always somebody who doesn't know what it is. And that's just that little voice inside our head that says that we're not good enough, that we shouldn't be here, that we're fooling everybody, that it's a lie. It's just a little thing. And sometimes it can be really loud and bright. And I was in Dr. Mae Jemison, who is the first Black woman to go to space, first astronaut who is a Black woman. She invited me to speak at the Johnson Space Center about students in space as an astronaut teacher in 2012. And I was in front of a room of people who are astronauts at the Johnson Space Center, introducing myself as Mike Mongo, astronaut teacher. And so help me goodness, like me and you, I want you to know that in my head, the thought was that they are going to put cuffs on me and arrest me right here on the spot. That they are just going to stop my talk and clunk, clunk, like that was that. 49% of my thinking was dedicated, of my energy was dedicated to that thought. But 51% was at the, I know what I'm talking about, and there's a reason why I'm here. And that is the one, like we train ourselves. And I had already at that point been like pushing and like, this is the breakthrough moment. After that talk, everybody came up and acknowledged me. That acknowledgement was probably one of the most important acknowledgements. When astronauts come up to you after you give a talk about being an astronaut teacher and say, we've been waiting for your voice, that specific sentence, we've been waiting for your voice. And like, wow, like all of that imposter syndrome just dissipates, just fades away like steam. And then we are free to move forward in the future. And then I chose to become an astronaut teacher because I was 42 and I didn't think I was going to be an astronaut. And then because of NFTs and because of the Web3, and here we are in the future, and no one can prepare to be surprised. This past summer at NFT NYC, I got selected with Sydney Hamilton, Joan Melendez-Meisner, Trent Tresh, and Ruben Salinas as the first Web3 commercial crew
Yes.
in history. And we got to make that announcement at NFT NYC. It's absolute honor.
Mm, it is. You got to bring your son to NFT NYC this year. I brought my two boys a couple events ago. I guess it was actually right before the pandemic, February 2020. I brought my two sons. What was your son's experience like, and what was your experience like having your son with you for the event? Talk a bit about, the father-son dynamic or the parent-child dynamic in this space, and maybe some of the encouragement you might give to other parents to consider, maybe they should consider bringing their younger children, teenagers or adolescent kids to NFT London as an example. So can you talk a bit about that? Because I think that ties to who you are and also the success in your life, the grace upon your life, in that you're not just approaching everything in a standard way, right? You're thinking, okay, is this an opportunity for me to include my family? So let's talk about that for a moment.
So thank you. That is the very first thing I want to say is it's hard. And that should be the sign that it's the right thing to do, because anything worth doing is going to be difficult, is going to be challenging. And I was at NFT NYC when I got the announcement, like when I got the call that I was being selected for commercial crew, and I called up Rafael's mom and said, he was about to go home on Tuesday, but the announcement was on Wednesday. And I said to her, if I was 11 and my dad was being declared an astronaut, I would want to be there. And so that was that. So that's that. And then the other part is that my son is an NFT artist. And he is not one of these artist children who sells work. He is not allowed to mint. He wants to mint. Oh yes, he wants to mint. He understands NFTs and Web3 have taught him more about money and economics than anything I have ever. I couldn't have him count how many nickels were in a dollar. As soon as he understood this is his money, the whole thing changed for him.
Yep.
And my son is a fantastic artist, and at the same time, he is 11, and I do not want him to have work posited on the blockchain that will at some point possibly cause him embarrassment, that he will be ashamed of, that he will say that this does not adequately represent me as an artist. And I can understand that, because I didn't know who I was an artist at 11 or 16 or 20, 21 maybe. Right. Here, look at this. Hold on for a second. Right here. I got to show you this.
We can't wait.
So
we're leaning in.
Piece that I hang on the wall. This is Rafael Weitzman. This is my son.
Wow.
This is Rafael Alexander.
That's awesome.
Weitzman Thompson Mongo. That's his work. And for 11,
I love it.
It's so emotionally sophisticated. And part of it is because I bring him with me. I think I brought him in the conversation about what I'm doing and what I'm creating. Like, I want him, he asked me about minting, and he asked me about blockchain and all of this, because I've included him in the conversation. Right. So as you know, in the Twitter spaces and clubhouses and different things like that, he's there. And when I want him to grow into this and to have him experience human beings. He had never been to New York City before. Yeah, that was the first time so he got to do New York City. He got to do NFT NYC with a full badge, right? Like a boss, right. And then engage with peers like you, and also grow as a human in the way that he's supposed to, as a child growing into a human being, like a grown-up, and having responsibilities, looking people in the eye, shaking people, fist bumps because of COVID, and saying thank you and please, and acknowledging people when he walks in the room, and saying goodbye when he leaves. These important things, they can be taught anywhere. And I want him to do better than me, as all parents do. We all want our kids to do better than us. And so the only way for me, for that, his passion for art, he has a passion for football right now. I don't play football. I'm a mathlete, not an athlete. I always say, and so now I get into football because that's what he's into. Yeah. And at the same time, he did a painting last week that was about, this is my experience of as my 11-year-old experience of summer. This is my 11-year-old. I want this painting to remind me of this for the rest of my life. I'm like, you're a boss.
It's awesome.
Like that's, and we're going to be creating NFTs. And I can explain that also. That the reason why is because we're going to space, and we can solve all the challenges we face on Earth by solving for space. And we're not going to be carrying paintings, those big, that's mass. And mass equals money when it takes to go into space. And I've got this little jar of coins right here. I don't even know what to do with these. Like I give up, there's a charity like dump coins thing at the store.
I was just looking, I'm like, what am I gonna do with these quarters?
Yes. Well, I can tell you this, we're not carrying the space. We're not doing transactions of values. How we're doing in space is we'll have our device and I'm going to send you currency and you're going to receive it. And that's that. That's how that's going to work, because that doesn't cost anything when it comes to mass and sending stuff to space and supporting it in space. And art, hard art, and big and actual even dollar bills. Those, like, we're not trading that currency in space. And the future of our civilization is space-based, in the very simple reason that 90% of the sun's energy hits the planet and is deflected by our atmosphere, which is to the good of our life and survival. But we can put satellites with technology we have right now outside the atmosphere, collect 90% more intensity of solar radiation and solar energy to beam back to our Earth with radiation, harmless radiation, microwaves. And there goes coal and oil, just like that. And here in the future, that's not a negotiable point. That's not an opportunity. That's a get to. We get to do that in order to continue to have a civilization and a planet worth having for humans.
I want to transition and have you talk a bit about October 22nd. I think that's an important thing for people to know about. It's a big day for you and your friends. Before you do, I want to acknowledge something about you that I think is super unique. A lot of people are passionate. If they're on a stage, they might even be passionate as like a performer, right? Like they're going to show up in the moment and give the audience everything they can and draw their attention and keep it. There's something different about your passion. If I had to explain it, I'd either explain it as like a cup that's overflowing. Like you are a coffee cup and the coffee keeps pouring, it's just pouring over. I might explain it like that, in terms of your passion is so immersive that it's just kind of pouring out of you. Or another thing I might say is like you have a well, right? Like a bubbling well, like it just, the water or the passion just never ends and it keeps coming out as a waterfall or something. The reason I bring that up is I think it's unique. I think the way that you communicate passionately, when you drop on a knee and you just are giving you're just explaining something, and it's not like a thing you're putting on. It really feels authentic and who you are. So I bring that up because I'd love for you to just grab us by the heart, squeeze real hard, and draw us in with your passion and what's happening October 22nd. So that's my invitation for you to just tell us all about it with all the energy and enthusiasm you have.
Those are such beautiful words. And it reminds me of what Maya Angelou says. And this is helpful in relation to that energy. Maya Angelou says, don't pick it up and don't put it down. And it's like people say the most kind and lovely things just like that. Like no one's ever said what you just said to me, and it is lovely. And if I pick that up, then when somebody delivers me the other part or the other side of it, we're like, oh gosh, he's on all the time. Oh gosh, oh my gosh, do I have to deal with Mike Mongo right now? I haven't even had coffee, that kind of whole thing. I don't have to put that down. I don't pick this up. And so just walking through, and sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And I wake up with myself every day, and I wash my own dishes, and like I do my laundry, and these are the important things that keep us in that same. I think this is one of the reasons you and I connect, and that there's a centralness to us. We just like not too high, not too low. There's a wide lane here to play with.
Yes, there
And
is.
so, and with October 22nd, I get to combine, I get to be participating and combining the two of my favorite things in the world, and that's Web3 and space. And we are Uplift Aerospace and Space Plus NFTs. Space Plus is pretty much, it's not, I don't know that it's the first Web3 space company. There's also Crypto Space Agency, and there's another one that sent someone to space recently, and with NFTs, and it's just the future. And so I get to combine these two things by having, as part of our training, a 0G flight launching from here at Cape Canaveral.
Yeah.
Now, I've already done a couple rounds of 0G, and 0G is as amazing an experience as is available to us on Earth. When I describe 0G to other people, I say that the only thing that I have done better than 0G, and I have spent a lifetime in the ocean. Like, I used to free dive to 80 feet on a single breath.
Wow.
And because because it reminded me of what it may be like to float. That was the idea. And I thought that until I did 0G. Yeah. And when I share what it's like as an experience, I say the only thing I've done better in my life is love another person who loved me back. Like, that experience, like, that's the bar that 0G has. So this will be my third round of 0G training. On this flight, we're having Gabe Weiss, who did the Stoics, this big launch is happening right now, this massive launch with all of these artists contributing, collabing, everyone from Jessica Yotrowski to Gabe Weiss to Xcopy to Moonbirds. Everybody is part of this 5,000 piece PFP project. Gabe Weiss is coming with us, one of the 22 people that'll be on board, half astronauts, half, because there's Dr. Cyan Proctor and other space professionals, other astronauts, and will be joining us. All the crew of Space Plus 5 and Web3 artists who will be making art in 0G that gets turned into NFTs to support on auction, support Astro Access, which Astro Access is one of those nonprofits that we may not have heard of, but is definitely the future. Yeah. Astro Access allows people who have traditionally been withheld from participating in aerospace and the culture of space, people with mobility disabilities, people with prosthetics, people who are deaf, people who are blind, to start training for space and sending people with disabilities to 0G. Yeah. We'll have 2 ambassadors from Astro Access on our mission, on this training mission. And we'll have NFT artists creating art, and their art, including Gabe Weiss, including Cyan Proctor, including people that we all know and love, creating art that gets turned into NFTs that will be used to fund Astro Access to open up the door to space. And as I explained before, that is important because we solve all the challenges we face on Earth by solving for space. This is what Web3 is. All of this happened because I bought an NFT. I didn't win the seat. It wasn't a Willy Wonka golden ticket. All buying the NFT allowed me to do was to go through a relatively traditional application process. And then they picked 5 finalists, and those 5 finalists, it was only supposed to be 1 seat. And Ruben Salinas is the first astronaut for Space Plus 5. He's the announced winner of that seat. And Space Plus and Uplift Aerospace has decided that we all played so well together, and we just have this really unusual chemistry. These wonderful things do show up in life, and they saw it, and the community saw it. And based on that, they made the announcement. We have selected all 5 finalists as the first Space Plus 5, as the first Space Plus commercial crew, Space Plus 5. And we're in the process of procuring seats for all 5 of us, plus a very special passenger. Like, we're escorting a very special passenger to space. We're all training to go on space on Blue Origin. 1 seat has been procured, and we're in the process of procuring the other 4 right now, plus the seat of the passenger we're escorting.
And then you won't announce the actual date of the flight until 30 days out.
Right.
We know it's more than 30 days out, but we know that October 22nd is coming.
Yes.
We'll be part of NFT London, so we'll see what type of fun things you bring to the community for that. The final thing I want to ask you about is this thought of NFT space and you. Can you make, because somebody's watching this conversation and they're like, I'm so happy for Mike and these 4 astronauts, and this is amazing, and yay, I celebrate with them. But can you make it personal for folks and help people understand what you mean when you say a statement like, you need to understand NFTs and space and you and how this impacts you and why you should care about it? Why don't we end there?
Okay, if we're going to end there, then before we get there, I want to talk about NFT London.
Please. Yeah, let's do that first.
Because the reason I'm going to NFT London is because of what I saw happen at NFT NYC. This is we hear this word zeitgeist, like the spirit of the age. And then we don't know exactly what it is until we experience it live in person. Yeah. And then on that first NFT NYC, I look forward to the next one from that moment on. It was one of the best experiences of a fantastic life that I have had. And now I know that that's expanding outwards, and the people who structure this and stage us. And I've been to a bunch of other conferences. Yeah. I get to speak at, I have, by the grace of good, I get to speak at a lot of different conferences. And nonetheless, the epitome, the pinnacle for me is NFT NYC. And now that's expanding to London. I want to be there. And maybe there's going to be somebody who walks in the door who just is taking a chance. And I get to model what abundance looks like. That's it. When you and I have been through parallel experiences. Abundance is one of those words that people have put in front of us our whole lives, undoubtedly. Right. And no, people didn't take the time to explain it. That there's enough for all of us. That here in the future, that we have evolved as a human, as a kind, and we are now capable of entertaining the idea of everything working out for everyone all the time without harm to anyone. It's just simply imagining what everything working out for everyone all the time without harm to anyone would even look like. Yeah. And it starts with people having enough. With my Mongo Mugs NFTs, my Mongo Mugs NFTs, I created a project and I'm on my 3rd generation of those right now. And the thing is that those NFTs, all they do is open up this conversation right now, the exact conversation that I have in person or in public. With anybody, people, I'm the easiest person to get a hold of, simplest person to get a hold of. And I've made it available to other people to have that conversation, not because they couldn't have it otherwise, but because they have the resources to be able to support me in having this conversation. And that's what we get to do. The reason I support these other NFT projects is for the exact same reason. Right. It creates abundance in other people's lives. Yeah. It is, and that's that interconnection, that spectacular interconnection. You're expanding that by doing NFT London, and I get to be present for that. Yay! That's how I feel. Yay!
Yay! NFT space in you. I still do want you to talk about why this is personal for people that aren't one of the 5 astronauts. Thank you for all that you said about our events. It has been an honor to be a small part of it and to be able to, co-create this with our friends like you. But I did want you to be able to speak to people making this personal, because we're at the very beginning of something, right? Space Plus 5 is a very early execution of a broad and unlimited potential vision. So can you just make this personal for all the people that are listening, but aren't one of the 5 that are going to space? Absolutely. And why do you see it being personal for an audience that's looking from the outside in?
That last thing that you just said is that's the part that catches with me, is we don't have to be on the outside. And there are so many other places where gatekeeping has prevented any of us from pursuing and achieving any of the goals that we've set out for ourselves.
Mm.
And this is the, like, we have evolved. I don't say that lightly. Like people think of that as a metaphor. I think that 200 years ago, when we began entertaining the idea of evolution, that it catalyzed something in those in the minds of people who decided, oh, evolution, yeah, it's a principle of nature. Yeah, that's the way to go. Where do we evolve to next?
Yeah.
Intentionally or unintentionally, we began imagining, where do we evolve to next?
Mm-hmm.
What is possible for us? And then part of the planet, honestly, like, and still today, like, there's no such thing as evolution. They decided, they doubled down, and like, that's it. And people, I think evolution has become intentional. That's my conjecture. That's not merely a belief. And so now this is the reason Web3 has shown up right now, is because humankind has evolved. Mm-hmm. And this is what is available to us. So we don't need to think about being on the outside anymore. We can be on the inside simply by deciding to be. Like, this is my culture. This is my people. I am Web3. Yeah. I am this one. Like, when I was a kid, how do we define? I still talk with people today in other nations that, in Thailand, for instance, they don't declare themselves artists, though they are successful NFT creators and have their own proprietary aesthetic, because they don't have a piece of paper issued by a central authority that declares them to be an artist. Right. Holy moly, just Piccoli. Like, that's then our job is to model the fact that we are the determinants of our future. We determiners. We determine who we are and where we want to be. If you want to go to space, declare it. When there's a student I worked with, her name is Alyssa Carson, and I get to see her from the time she wrote the introduction to my book, The Astronaut Instruction Manual, and when she was 13, and now she's in college. And what she tells students all along the way is, declare your goal to everybody. You never know who you're talking to. Yeah. You and I didn't know who when we met. Like, this is how this happens. You get to be yourself. I always say this crazy thing, this crazy, insane, outlandish thing. Do what you love with who you love and help others. And it's crazy and outlandish because it is guaranteed that you will succeed if you do those three things. When we do those three things, do what we love with who we love and help others. Yeah. And we cannot fail. Yeah. And that is completely different than what we were trained in. And here we are, where everybody gets to be involved. On a personal note, with Space Plus 5 and the Uplift Aerospace community, when this NFT project happened, pardon me, many people bought the NFT thinking it was like a golden ticket, like it was going to be like a lottery. And that's not how space works. Like, we can't just send every single person who, on a whim, guy decides to go to space. It would be dangerous. Yeah, there gets to be in everything. We get to do the work. People can't just come up to me and say, "Hey, I want to write your smart contract. I want to be a Solidity dev." Right. I want to be a Solidity dev, a celebrity. Yeah, Solidity devs are celebrities these days. That's a fact. So right. I want to be a Solidity dev. Well, you can be. You get to do the work. If that's your passion, do that. If you want to be an artist, do that. If you want to be an astronaut, do that. And so here's something that happened after that. Some people got disenfranchised. So like, oh, I thought I was just gonna I didn't know I was going to be in competition with actual people who have worked for this for this period of their life. Right. Like I'll never win that. And then other people, and this is about evolution. Other people, and I got to witness this. They said, "Oh, I see how it works now." And I have a connection to space and the culture of space and space industry now. And they have just flourished. People who 3 months ago, 4 months ago, had no connection whatsoever with the space industry and the culture of space are now talking with real figures working in the space industry who know who they are. Yeah. And that's what we are creating here. When you open the doors of NFT London, how many people are going to walk in that first morning, walk in with an idea in their head, and by the end of the second day, walk out with a completely different understanding of themselves? Yeah. And that they're going to communicate to their friends. And some of their friends are going to tell them, "No, that's stupid." And we get to find the people in our lives that we'll surround ourselves with that say, "You know what? I've heard about this. I'm interested." And then we get to, like, it doesn't mean that we stop loving the people who think that our idea is stupid. It may be people close to us. It might be our moms or our dads or our children or our spouses or our partners. we don't stop loving them.
Hmm,
We just keep them at arm's length away from that particular vision or dream.
that's good.
And then a lot of times when we succeed, they come along for the ride. And that's what we want in the first place.
Yep. Well, everybody, I could stay on with Mike forever. Most of my fireside chats are like 10 minutes, but not with Mike. No, 30 plus minutes.
No, it's been 10 minutes, right?
And Mike, we so appreciate you're part of this community. Everybody that